All right, we are beginning the second parak of Sukkah Daf Chav Hamid Beis, Hayoshan Tachas Hamita. Zok the Hilga Mishnah. Hayoshan Tachas Hamita. Someone sleeps under a bed in a sukkah. Lo yatsi de chavasai. He did not fulfill his obligation. Let's just stop there for a minute. What? I didn't fulfill my obligation. What obligation? I have a mitzvah to sit in the sukkah. Right? So I wasn't yotzei my chiyuv. If I ate in this, I wasn't makayim a mitzvah of sukkah. If that's the only thing I did all of Yantiv, then it may be la yatsi de chavasei. But what does that mean? La yatsi de chavasei. I didn't fulfill my obligation. Maybe say it's usher. You're not allowed to sleep you have to sleep in a sukkah. You can't sleep under a bed. That makes sense. You want to say you're mevatel mitzvah's essay because you slept under a bed. You mean you didn't sleep in the sukkah. What does it mean? La yatsa yedei chavasei. Didn't fulfill his obligation. It's fair lashon. Rashi says la yatsa the oil. The reason why he wasn't yatsa is the oil mafsek beinay l'sukkah because there's a tent separating between him and his sukkah. The ikar is an important line. The ikar yeshivas sukkah. The ikar yeshiva sukkah. The mitzvah is leishiva sukkah. So the ikar yeshiva sukkah is achila, shtia, and sheina. Now achila I get because you can. That's like achila. You have a suda and a sukkah. Shtia.
That's the same as achila.
It's not because you drink it. You don't have to be in a sukkah to drink.
Oh, I mean just a drink. If you're just drinking.
If you're just drinking, yeah. Shtia is a kaveya. Maybe it means shtia is yain. Like there was a kavias for shtia yain. The Gemara Brach talks about. They were mesubin.
You don't think it's together?
It's nice, but I think it's that wouldn't be. I don't know. No, I don't know. It could be. I think that's a shigul. I don't know. I think it's a good heart. It doesn't belong there. I think it just means eating it. Meaning, what kind of eating? Maybe an eating that comes along with drinking. Like that kind of ease defining the achila. Sheina means you're supposed to sleep. So those are the ikar. I mean, what's he coming lafuke? What's not the ikar yeshiva sukkah? Learning in the sukkah, I guess. Hanging out, being mitayel the sukkah. That's not the ikar yeshiva sukkah. It's got to be achila shtia and sheina. So here, this guy was then to sheina. I don't know. I don't remember the answer to the yatz. We shouldn't discuss that. They don't like the nusach. Okay, I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda says, Noigin hayinu shayinu sheina tachas hamita. If ne'ezakain v'le'amr lena davar. Yehuda says we used to sleep under the beds when we were in front of the zakenim, and no one ever said a word. So presumably they held that was okay. So Yehuda argues and says you can sleep under a bed in a sukkah. Amar Reb Shimon, let me tell you a story. Reb Shimon says, Ma'isa, I'll tell you a story. B'tevi avdish Rabbi Gamliel. B'tevi, who was the slave of Rabbi Gamliel. He would sleep under the bed in the sukkah. And Rabbi Gamliel would say to the kenim, get back cook of mine. I don't know how to say slave, but look at my slave. Tevi, he's a Tamar Chacham. He knows and then we learned from Rabbi Gamliel that if you sleep under a bed, you don't fulfill your obligation. Now, why are avodim parted from sleeping in the sukkah? So mitzvah says she's my grandma, and avodim are hukish le nashim, and just like women are exempt from mitzvah says my grandma, so are avodim. La avodim are going to be parted from mitzvah says she's my grandma.
Pesach is also my grandma, but there we made their mechuyuv.
Which part of Pesach? Achilas matzah. Because we have a hekesh. Anybody who has a have to eat has these. Correct.
So don't we do two someplace?
Yes, there's a hekesh tesvav tesvav to tell you that you have achila on the first night. Will women be obligated in that?
And weren't they involved in the ace?
That's dirabana. Afin hayuvasin it would only be machayiv on a dirabana. It's not as far. That's not machayiv. It's something which the Torah exempts you from. It's interesting. It's something that the Torah exempts women from. Af hayuvasin would not be machayiv. It's a svar on mitzvah dirabana. They use that svar to machayiv them in dirabanas.
So Pesach is only because they're machayiv to eat matzah. So therefore they
no, because they're machayiv. They're asher to eat chametz. if they have a chiyuv to eat matzah
The whole Pesach.
the first night.
We also have a mission of Sukka, never say much more.
What's up with that? The kasha is it's a good kasha. I don't remember. It's a good ha'ara. Are women obligated because of the gzera shava tezvav to eat a kazayis of in the sukkah the first night? It's slipped my mind now. I remember I said a shit there about that. There's a whether tezvav and it's just a gilui on the drasha of Teshuvah King Teduru, and it makes it a chiv the first night. Then maybe women would be exempt if it's a din and achila. So maybe women would be chayiv. I don't remember. There's that's a good ha'ara, good kasha. Okay. So a kid Tevi didn't sleep in the sukkah, and they said that he was parted for that. Okay, great. Now the Gemara asks. Okay, that's the story with the Ever. We'll come back to it. The Gemara actually has another thing they learned from that story. Okay. Frankly, Gemara, like Asara, what's the issue with sleeping under a bed? How high is your bed already? How high is his bed off the ground? It's 30 inches, 2.5 feet off the ground. That's pretty high. It's not it's low. It's not 10 tvachim. So if it's not 10 tvachim, so why would it be an issue? Says the Gemara, the issue would only be with a mita that's 10 tvachim off the ground. So if you have a low bed, a chayra, you'd be able to sleep under it. You'd be able, if you have a bed that's less than 10 tvachim in your sukkah, and you didn't want to, you needed room, whatever it was, so you could sleep under the bed. Now, Tais is like, 1 second. Didn't we learn that if there's something that's kavua, then even if it's under 10, you can't sleep under it? Remember we spoke about tequila, and tequila's chasana. Makila, we said if it was beklaya, mita so it was kavua in the mita. Then we said even if it's less than 10 tvachim, you can't sleep in it because it's kavua. So this mita is kavua. So that's what Taisus is bothered by here. The Gemara Mukila Shmuel first says on the parak. The Gaiva Asara, the Pachs Mekan Lechashav Oil, Havsak, Matzil, remember the Shmuel Tamei. Oh, that's not this one, is it? Maybe it is. He gets into it at the end. So first of all, he says that the issue over here is like what you were saying before. The issue that we're having here is that it's a sukkah tachas a sukkah. Sukkah, I mean, that's it being under a bed, and therefore it's only if it's 10 tvachim high. And he says that Shmuel l'shitase, because Shmuel says that you don't. We had 3 shitas there in the Gemara on what is mafsik. Is it 1 tefach, 4 tvachim, or 10 tvachim? Shmuel said 10 tvachim. So Taisa says it's l'shitase. The machshir b'parakam b'tachtena kishein b'aliyana asara. A sukkah tachas a sukkah is only an issue if it's 10 tvachim. Aval einachem eroid the pas mishum d'aliyana chashiva oil. Aval b'sheina gavay yud. What didn't the chashiv oil mafsik? So the L'chayr is asking, what about according to the other shitas? L'chayr, we had 2 other shitas there, 4 tvachim and 1 tefach. So L'chayr, according to them, what would you do with Rabbi Yehuda? If Yehuda is saying you can sleep under a bed, L'chayr, even if it's it should be a 4 tvachim or 1 tefach, you obviously can't sleep under. So how do they deal with that? The Taisa says v'shema mita shani. Maybe mita is different. Everybody would consider a mita an oil arai. Taisa doesn't say the Svar here, but the Gemara is going to say the other Mishnah and bring it also. Is that an oil, a mita is not made to sleep under. A mita is made to sleep on top of it. So something like that the area that it's being an oil, the dinam of oil are very dependent on how it's being structured. Correct. Like why isn't, when it comes to Al Shabbos, why isn't setting up a table making an oil? Right? Tarish is because it's meant to eat on, not to use it under. And that's a din in Al Shabbos. It's not considered an oil because we made it. So he says the same thing is but this mita. This mita is not meant to sleep under, it's meant to sleep on. Therefore, the area under is not considered an oil. And therefore, it's only if it's going to be 10 tvachim will be considered an oil. Less than 10 tvachim would be considered an oil. That stays on the other issue.
So that by sleeping under it, he's not doing anything. It's not even an oil.
Correct. That's what you say.
So what about the bedding? What is that?
There, it's meant to sleep. You're meant to sleep under. You're meant to sleep under. When they have sheets around your bed, it's there to protect you. It's there to keep them whatever it's there for. But that's the concept is to be inside of that. And therefore, even if it's less than 10 tvachim, will be considered an oil. Good. Exactly more weiter. Tanan awesome. We learned in a Mishnah. Where in where is this? In Ohalos. Okay, it was like there. I still haven't gotten to oilers. So it says, Echad chor shecharuruhu mayim. Whether you have a hole that water carved out, you had running water and it carved out a nice hole, or rodents ate through it, or it got eaten away by salt. Or if you have a pile of stones and inside that pile there's an oil, there's a space, or a pile of beams that makes and there's a space in that pile. Mahil al hatuma, that is considered an oil. So if you have tuma underneath that, and you'll have something that's tar underneath it, you have because I spent a mason, something tar, that'll be considered an oil. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, kol oil she'enei asi b'dei adam, einoi oil. If it's not man, if it was not man-made, it's not considered an oil. Okay, you have to have intent to make it into an oil to be considered an oil. That's Rabbi Yehuda Shita. What? Kol oil she'enei asi b'dei adam, einoi oil. Any oil, any tent which is not made, which is not man-made, is not considered an oil. In fact, my time is Rabbi Yehuda. Where does he get this from? He learns from the Mishkan. One of the coverings on the Mishkan was called an oil. That's what it was called. It says when we're putting up the Mishkan, va yif roish. That's the oil al Mishkan, and he would spread the oil on the Mishkan. That was one of the layers of coverings. So just like over there by the Mishkan, it was done by man. So too, when it comes to the any oil, it needs to be done by man. So that's his Gzer Shava oil. So that's a kishmak for Rabbanan. What do they do with that? He says oil riba. The Torah says in that parsha paraduma oil many times, and therefore it's coming to say you're right. There is an oil as bidei adam, but the fact that it says it again is coming to tell you that you can have an oil even if it's not bidei adam, even if it's bidei shemayim. Okay, kishmak machlokes Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda. V'savar Rabbi Yehuda kol oil she'enei asi bidei adam einei oil. Does Rabbi Yehuda really hold that an oil which is not man-made is not considered an oil? V'raminu, we have a steer to this. The Mishnah says, now, let me just give you a little insight, introduction, before we start this Mishnah. The para aduma has a very big kula. The para aduma could be made by a tful yom. A tful yom is a guy who went to the mikvah, so even though he can't eat truma until there's Arif Shemesh, until he tastes like a chavim, but he's considered tful yom, he's allowed to eat ma'aser, he can't eat truma. It's called a tful yom. Okay? I think that Tzedukim would not use it for. They held you can't have a tful yom to make the ashes, to burn the paraduma, and therefore we went out of our way to make sure that they did. We used the tful yom. Okay, now it's a machlokes. Yeah, it's machlokes. If the rest of the chumras that we have the Rabbanan have by paraduma is because of this. So Rashi sounds like he says here. Other places it sounds like they had these chumras anyway, but they made a lot of chumras because. Either because the Torah was making a lot for tful yom, or because they were using a tful yom, there were many other chumras which they instituted. I'm talking super duper chumras. Okay, and this is a list of one of the one we have here is that for the kohen the kohen that would burn the para, they had to make sure he was tar, and they would be mazin on him. They do hazah on him from the old ashes for 7 days. Okay, to get the water for those ashes, okay, they would make sure that they would make sure that the water was filled with tahara. How do you make sure you have that the water is being filled by someone who is tahar? Okay, so this is what our Mishnah talks about. Okay, listen to this. You'll think we're wrapping your kitchen in aluminum foil. It's nothing. So they had these areas, these chaseres, that were built in Yerushalayim on top of rock. That means there was no chash that there was someone buried here. Right? On soil, you never know if there was someone was buried there. That there's a mace buried here somewhere. But if you got rock, you'd know if there was someone there. Okay.
You can't dig that rock.
You can't dig. You could drill it out, but you can't cover it up that you wouldn't know. So chaseres ha'ibnus agabe sal v'tachteyem chalal. And under them was hollow. What was that? I forgot what that was. Mipnei kever tahim. Kever tahim means a suffix tumah. Tahim means the abyss. Rashi says a kever tahim means a suffix kever. So they would have these chatzeres built on Yerushalayim on top of stone. I think it was hollow underneath it. I always thought that they made these things that were hollow, put it on top of the ground. But underneath it was under the rock was hollow?
Yeah.
I don't know how they did that.
Beneath them, but beneath the rocks.
Okay.
So it would stop and eat.
Any tumah, if there's anything there, they wouldn't get through. Okay. So there's no suffix tumah. So they'd have women who were pregnant, and they'd bring them there. Every yadlis would have babies there. And they would raise their kids there. Now, it was an issue. Well, I mean, after the mother gives birth, she becomes tummy. So what do they do with the kids then? Right? So
the baby.
But so who raised the kid? So it's machlekes. If they're concerned, I mean, who nursed this kid? That was the kasha they're dealing with. Did the mothers nurse the kid, or they brought someone else to nurse the kids? So it was the machlekes whether they were concerned for any tumah or just for tumas mace, or we'll see tumas carry. Right? That's the machlekes in the Rishon. So it could be that the mothers stayed there and raised the kids, but they just and they were careful from tumah mace. Okay. Anyway, for the paradum. Mevi and shvarim. So it was time to get the water for the paradum. Mevi and shvarim. So they would bring oxen, balgabe and dalslis, and they would put doors on top of the ox just for the kid to sit on. Vitinaikais. What?
Doors not clean.
It's a plank. It's a plank for them to sit on. What was that? That would be mafsik. If there was anything on top of the under that, it would be mafsik. The tumah. It would act as an aisle, so therefore, being on top of that, you'd be in a safe zone. Within there, okay. The kids would sit on top of them. The kaisa shel even, which are not makabel tumah, were in their hands. They'd get to the stream of the shiloach. Then they would go down to the water. They would fill them up. They'd bring them back, and they would bring it back to whoever was making the paraduma. No, they wouldn't even leave the dallas. They wouldn't leave their platform on their ox, and they would take a clear. They lower it down into the water, and they pick it up, so they wouldn't have to get off it all. Okay, that's machlekes whether you can do that or not. Whether you're allowed to be mishal. Now, Vitan, Rabbi Yehuda, this is what we're looking for. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Loi hayim evi and dalsais." They wouldn't bring these doors for the kids to sit on. Ela shvarim, they would just bring oxen. That's it. Now, meaning when he felt that was good enough, the shvarim, the kid could sit on an ox. Oxen were tevach wide, tevach high, and act as an oil itself. If it walked over anything, you'd have no issues. Shvarim the oil she'ene asi b'dei adamhu. 1 second. This is not a man-made oil. This ox, it grew up to be an ox. This is not man-made. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda holds it's possible to have an oil even if it's not man-made. You can have an oil b'dei shemayim. The ox itself is an oil. And if you're bringing a door, okay, so you made an oil. The kid's sitting on an oil that you made. But they're saying you don't need to do that. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda holds you don't need to have an oil can even be b'dei shemayim. So we have a stira, a kasha stira in Rabbi Yehuda. So we're going to give 2 answers. First answer. Ki as Rav Dimi Yam Rav Elias. Moide Rabbi Yehuda kemalei egroif. Rabbi Yehuda agrees that if your oil is more than a fist, or the size of a fist, which is more than a tefach, right? A tefach would be like this. It's a little bigger than a tefach. Kemalei egroif. So then he agrees it can even be bidei shemayim. If it's exactly a tefach, your oil, then it needs to be bidei adam. But if it's larger than that, then it can be bidei. It can be bidei. It could be bidei shemayim, and that was the shvarim. The shvarim were larger than a tefach. They were kamali egrif. Tani namyach. We have a raya we have a brayso that says like this as well. Umayd Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda agrees b'shekifin, in caves, u'benekike asloim, and in the large cavities in rocks, he would agree that that would be an oil. Okay, so even though it was naturally made, that could still be an oil because it's more than an egrif. It's a mali egrif. Okay. Now, first, one second. Barei Dallas, the yesh bakam egrif. Well, doors are huge. They got plenty of fists. So what's his issue with using a door? V'ktan Rabbi Yehuda. V'ktan we learn Rabbi Yehuda. Amar loyhem evin dal says al shvarim. So Amar Abaye. Abaye answers loyhutzuchu lahavi dal says. Abaye wasn't saying that you can't. He was just saying. Rabbi Yehuda was just saying you don't need to, because you have this axe. You don't have to. You don't have to. Don't bother yourself. We haven't done enough. You don't bring doors. It's not the biggest deal. But he's like, no, Rabbi says it's not necessary. Well, you don't need to bring the doors. That's all Rabbi Yehuda meant. Rava argues. This is no. No, you weren't allowed to use doors, but for a different reason, not because he didn't hold it that was an oil. But that would be an oil. But because the kid's going to get a little bit too comfortable up there, and therefore we're concerned. Maybe he'll stick out his head. Hey, mom. He'll wave to somebody. He'll stick out his hand off of the door. The time of the kafir time, and then we'll be concerned. All of our work here just went for naught because it become tummy.
You would have the door below him.
Sorry. So therefore, we wanted him just to have an ox, and therefore he's scared for his life, and the kid was holding on tight. Now these kids, how old were they? Rashi says they were 7 or 8. Is it going on here? Maybe they want to bring it. No, it's Rashi brings. The kids are up to 7 or 8 because we don't have any chash carry. So it was up to 7 or 8 that we would go for this. So the kid, a 7 or 8-year-old riding an ox, he'd be nervous, and if we'd hold on to the ox, and he's not going to be sticking anything off of it, and therefore we don't have to be worried that he's going to become tummy. Tanya Kava said that Rabbi actually have a raya that Rava's pshat and Rabbi Yehuda is correct, because Rabbi Yehuda, you couldn't bring doors. Rather, we would bring these Egyptian axes and Shikreisei and Rechavos that had wide bellies, that Yinaikas Yoshua and Al Gaben, and the kids would sit on top of them. The Kaiser shall Evan Biyadehen, and these earthenware or stone cups were in their hand. Higiu l'shiloach, when they got to the shiloach yard, the milam, but all of Yeshua Al Gaben, and they kept back. Okay, good.
So when they got to the shiloach, they got off the.
According to not according to the Tanakam, according to Rabbi Yehuda here, yes, then they'd be able to go because he had a problem that you're not allowed to be mashal. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. You can't use a chain. He held you couldn't use a chain. Why not?
Even an iron chain.
Whatever. It was an issue of you had to do it by hand. I think. I don't know where I saw that. I don't remember.
People throw them elephants. You ever put an elephant? Yeah. They didn't write. Elephants.
And everyone lived like this? Or this is just like a kind of like who
Because you're special kids, special guys. Only until 7 or 8.
All children, or
not all children? They'd bring. I guess you had to be a kohen. Maybe I don't know if that's true. You don't have to be a kohen. No, you don't have to be a kohen. No, I'm saying the guy who did it had to be a kohen. I don't know who was.
What is it?
Special kids. That's how you built this. They built the Yerushalmis. This is the original Yerushalmis. Okay. Now, why do we bring all this? What was the point of all this? Because remember, Rabbi Yehuda was in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda said that you were able to sleep under. He would say you could. Rabbi Yehuda slept under the bed. Right? Remember, Rabbi Yehuda said we used to sleep under the bed, and the Chacham never said anything to us. Okay. Now, so that's the Gemara. Baremita. The Yeshba Kama Egrif. The Amita has lots of Egrif. Right? It's got plenty of fists in Amita. So the Charit should be an oil. It's made be the well, even if it's made be the Shemayim.
It's not.
Same as the ox. The ox is big. It's so big that it's more than 1 acre. So.
It's like a noigim. I'm an oil. I love oil. So the issue is a different issue here because he's saying that riding on the ox or any of those things, the chayra, that's an oil arai. So what is, meaning, let's look at this. We have shvarim, an ox Rabbi Yehuda considers an oil. That is a good oil. And a bed is not a good oil. What's the difference? You can ride on an ox and that's an oil. It's moving, and your meat is not an oil because it's an oil arai. It's arai. Is any less arai than an ox? But he says that bidei shemaim if it has an egref is a problem. For sure, bidei adam is a problem, right? For sure, bidei adam is an oil. So how could Rabbi Yehuda say here that you could sleep under the bed? It can't be worse than an ox. Could you sleep under an ox? You want to sleep under an ox, but could you sleep under an ox? No, obviously not, right? Because als oil, you'd be in an oil, according to Rabbi Yehuda. So why could you sleep under a bed? That's the kasha. Says the Gemara. So my answer, Shani Mita. This is what we said before. A bed is different because a bed is meant to go on, not under, and therefore that's why it's not considered an oil. In fact, the Gemara, an oxen? What about an ox? He says, in fact, the Gemara, Shvarm Nami Lagaban Asuyan. Shvarm also meant to go on top, not under. Says the Gemara, Ki Asa Rav and Amr Belazar. Shani Shvarim Hoil Meginam Al Galarayim. You're right, it's not meant to go under, but Lamais, it serves as protection for the shepherds when they needed some protection. I guess if it was raining, they'd go under the ox, or if it was very hot, they'd find some shade. Okay, so it says, okay, mitanami. Listen, we do store things under beds. Mitanami. It protects your shoes that you keep under your bed. So Umar says, okay. Ella, rather, Amarava, Shani Shuram Hoil Vasim Lahagan al Bnei Me'ayim Shalahem. An ox is different because the spine, the shedra, and the skin are meant to protect the innards. It says the Gemara, it's really because it uses the lashon of schach by them. It says ar ubasa talbishay, flesh and skin you dressed me in. Uba'atsamais vegidim teseichicheni, and with my bones and my veins teseichicheni you cover me. So you see that the body is considered a schach. Okay. The Gemara, I'll give you an alternative svara, and that is that Rabbi Yehuda l'tamei. This is Rabbi Yehuda l'shitase, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that sukkah diras keva beina. Rabbi Yehuda holds that a sukkah needs to be a diras keva. Rabbi Yehuda holds you need a diras keva in a sukkah. He was one of the 8 that we mentioned, Lavzan Rebeis, because Rabbi Yehuda, what was his? I don't remember. He held he needed Rabbi holds you need 4x4. It's permanent. It's sukkah needs to be a permanent structure. He holds the mile michaf. That's why. No, but the structure, there's some element of permanence that's necessary, right? Rabbi Yehuda from Dab Beis Amral, he holds you're allowed to build a sukkah l'mile michaf. You could be over 20 amas, so that means it has a permanent. It's supposed to have some type of a permanence to it. It's supposed to be, or can be a deer. It's supposed to be a deer's keva. Has a din of a deer's keva. So therefore, he says, "V'havale mita deer's arai." Mita is a deer's arai because it's moved in and out.
Always a deer's arai.
The mita compared to a sukkah is considered a deer's arai. The sukkah oil keva, asi oil arai mevatale oil keva, and therefore the oil arai will not be mevatel your oil keva, and that's why you're allowed to sleep, says Rabbi Yehuda, under the sukkah, under the mita in your sukkah. Okay. In fact, the Gemara, 1 second, Rabbi Shimon nami diras keva be'inan. Rabbi Shimon also holds you need a diras keva. Rabbi Shimon is the one who holds that a sukkah needs 4 walls, or 3 and a tavach. So Rabbi Shimon should also hold that you should be able to sleep under your bed. Rabbi Shimon the Amar nami sukkah diras keva be'inan v'asi oil arei mevatel oil keva. It says, yeah, but how pligi? Mar savar asi oil arim batal oil keva. Umar savar lo yasa oil arim batal oil keva. And that's the machlekes whether you can have an oil aray like a mita being mevatal the oil keva, meaning if you have an oil aray in your sukkah in your oil keva. So do we look at it? I say, listen, do we look at it one relative to the other? The bed relative to the sukkah is not an oil. The sukkah is your oil here, and therefore you can be able to sleep under your bed. Or do we say no, that even an oil aray would we view it as an oil even in an oil keva. That's machlekes Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda in our Mishnah. Okay, great. Says the Mishnah, the Gemara writer. The Mishnah said that Reb Shimon brought a story with Teviah. Tan, we learned in a brayso, Reb Shimon misichasei shel Rabbi Gamliel, from the shmuzing of Rabbi Gamliel, labmadin shnei dvarim. We learned two halachas. Labmadin shavadam p'tur min hasachah, labmadin sheyashem tachas amita liyasadei chavasei. Wonderful. Frag the Gemara, why did Reb Shimon use such a language of misichasei from his sicha, from his talk? L'chayri, he should have said midvarav shem Rabbi Gamliel, from the words of Rabbi Gamliel. Why did he use the language of sicha? Says the Gemara, Milsa agavorcha kamashlan. Reb Shimon was coming to teach us something as well, and from his lashon, the way he used, from the lashon he used, we're able to learn something as well. And what is that? Kamashlan. The Amar of Achabar Ada Amar of Hamnuna Amarav, which is what? Minayin shafilu sichas tamid chacham tzrichalin. From where do we know that even the shmuzing, the jokes, the b'dichusa of a Talmud Chacham requires limud? You need to study. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, va'alehu la yibo. That's a pasuk in the first parak of Tehillim that's discussing someone who makes Torah cheftzai. So it says, "V'haya ka'eit shasal hapal gemayim." I'll be like a tree that's by the waters. Asher piri yitim b'itai, that its fruit gives out at the right time. V'alehu la yibo, and even its leaves don't dry up and wither. So you see, v'alehu is like the sichas chulin. It's like the secondary part. It's not the fruit; it's just the leaf. But even the leaves, there's something to gain from. That's what Rabbi Shimon was teaching us. That misichas chulin, sicha, daf kalashin sicha, from sichas chulin to mechacham, is what to learn from. Let's do the next Mishnah. Mishnah number 2. Hasaymech sukasei bikare hamita. So now we're going to talk about using, is really the sugya of ma'imid. Okay, so hasaymech sukasei, someone who basically has a sukkah with poles coming up from the poles. And instead of having sheets going around it, he's like, hey, I can leave the sheets on, but I'll put schach on top. Instead of having a sheet going on top of my sukkah, I'll put on top of my bed. I will put up schach. So great. So I got the walls already there. I have a bed, and I'll put up schach. Wonderful. That's a great idea. So hasemech sukkase b'karei hamita, one who supports his sukkah with the poles of his bed. Keshera, Tanakama says, that's great. Good for you. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, im eina yechayla la'amay b'fnei atzma. If the schach can't stay on its own, pesula, the sukkah is puzzle. Frak the Gemara, my time to Rabbi Yehuda. What's the issue? Ma bayapo. What's the issue having a schach on top of my bed, being supported by my bed? We have two ways to learn here. Pal Giba, Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Avraham. Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Avraham have machlokes. Why did Rabbi Yehuda pass? One says that this is not considered permanent. Rashi says, when you move your bed, you're moving your sukkah. You can't call that something permanent. You need to have something which is permanent. If you could just move it like that, that doesn't seem to be a good sukkah. The Rishonim are bothered by why is this any different than a sukkah on top of a boat or a horse or an agala. Okay. Next chat. That was one. The other one says, because you're supporting it with something which is makabel tumah. The bed posts are kalim. You're using your bed, and your bed posts, that's part of your bed. So it's a kli, and therefore it is makabel tumah. And being that you're supporting your bed with something which is makabel tumah, that's a problem. Now, what's the issue? What's wrong with supporting your schach with something which is makabel tumah? Since when since when your walls don't have to be makabel, don't have to be you can use anything for walls. So what's the issue here? Says Rashi, Shema Mida. Rashi asks the kasha. Second Rashi in the Gemara on this Gemara, about 10 lines up from the bottom of Rashi. Yeah, exactly. Shema Mida.
Shamida, yeah.
Okay. Va'aval pi frakt Rashi. Shaloi lamadnu psul elalischach. We haven't learned any psulim in the walls.
Right.
What's the issue here? Hoyel v'ikroi shal schach elu ma'amidin havi ki'ilu sikach bedavar hamakabel tumah. Since your schach is being supported by these things, it's as if you're using schach. It's as if you're using pasal schach. Since the pasal schach is supporting your since something which is makabel tumah or something that's pasal schach is supporting your schach, so that's if you're using something that's makabel tumah as schach. What?
This is where the din of Maimon comes from.
This is mine. Yeah, this is a din of mine.
But still, your walls.
One second. Now, that's how Rashi learns. Okay? The Ran and other Rishonim say a different lashon. They say the issue is a gezerah, where can be concerned if you're supporting your schach with something that's puzzle, you'll end up using that as schach as well. That's why the big kasha they ask, what, I can't use a stone wall? I mean, it seems like that was Varmshal. You had a stone wall and you're putting schach on top of your stone wall. Stone
walls are makabel tumah.
They're not gedulim in the arts, maybe?
No, stone wall. Stone's not makabel tumah.
Right, but it's puzzle schach. Stones they can't use for schach.
Yeah.
So
it's not the cart.
So how can you do that? So they said, well, the gezerah there wouldn't apply because you're not going to use stone for schach. So they say
only in this case with wooden poles in the bed.
There's an issue of that's what other Rishonim. Rashi doesn't sound like that. Rashi holds that it sounds like there's a psul deraisa here, right? There's a real psul here, and the other Rishonim learn that it's a gezerah, and therefore in places where the gezerah don't apply, then you can use that material. Let's just go further. Give me an afkamina here between these two reasons, whether it's not keva or because it's not you're being mad with the makabel. So my bin should not spudin shall barsa the sikach al gaben. What if I make a metal frame? I make a metal frame and I put schach on top of them. So well, according to the Harish Yesh la keva, this is definitely keva. You won't have an issue here. But and that will be a problem. Amr Abaye. So Abaye says,
use that as schach. You shouldn't have to worry about that.
Why would I use that as schach?
It's not that's
It's puzzle schach.
That's the whole point.
It's puzzle. And if you're gonna again the gezerah is that if you're gonna
stone, I'm saying.
No stone, the issue a stone wall. No one's gonna put a stone wall on top of your sukkah.
Why?
It's too heavy. It's gonna break.
It doesn't grow.
No, that the concern is that the gezerah is that I'm gonna end up using something which is puzzle schach. If I'm gonna use it to hold up my schach, I'll end up using it as schach. So, Amar Abaye says, "Lo yishanu el samach, aval sikech al gabe hamita kashera." Now he's going back on Rabbi Yehuda, and he's saying the only time we say that you can't. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it's not able to stand by itself, it's puzzle. That's only lo yishanu el samach. What does that mean? Right. That's if you're actually supporting the schach on your bedposts. Aval sikech al gava mita. But if you put schach on top of your mita, but I was using other poles to hold them up, so I put 4 poles in the ground and I put schach on top of it, and it was all right under my bed. My bed was right under it. That's fine. Keshera, my timer. Well, because you have other poles. Because I'm using something else. Great. That's the end of the sugya. Now, We have two things we got to find out here. First of all, in the Mishnah, do we pass like Rabbi Yehuda or the Chachamim? Second of all, if we pass like Rabbi Yehuda, is the reason because of Ein Lakava, or it would be the reason because of, or the reason be because of Maimed? Okay, so the Raza, the Maracha, the Balamar paskins like the Chacham. So we got nothing to talk. There's no sugi of Maimed B'chlal. Maimed is out. The Rif says, one second.
And what's the Chacham say?
The Chacham say you can sleep in your bed, with the they don't care Maimed. They don't care about double kaputuma. They don't care about the Ein Lakeva.
You're not worried
Not
to use it
concerned.
for staff.
Chacham not concerned. So therefore, they have no problems. That's how the Raza paskins. The Kudu Rosh Paskin. They also I didn't finish. The Rif says, one second. Why do we have a whole shakotari here in Rabbi Yehuda Shita? It's odd, right? If you have machlekes Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda, and we're passing like the Chacham, so why would the Gemara be busy with Rabbi Yehuda? Says the Rif, must be passing like Rabbi Yehuda. So now we pass like Rabbi Yehuda. Well, which svar Rabbi Yehuda are we passing like? If we're passing Rabbi Yehuda, and we're going to be passing Ein Lakeva, they don't like because the Gemara should have said it's a Yudah Shitase, something like that. So the Gemara says, oh, we're passing like Maimed. Well, if we're passing like Maimed, so that's a serious concern now. You can't use Maimed. So the Ma'aseh the Shulchan Aruch passes like the Chacham. The Shur brings down you should be machmir for Maimed, and that's why people will put on. We don't have to be concerned for Maimed de Maimed. Maimed de Maimed is something that's holding up the thing that's holding up your schach. So that's why many people will put up even if they have a metal sukkah, they'll put up cross beams that are wood, and then they'll put the schach on top of that. So the problem though, the Chazon Ish had an issue with that though. The Chazon Ish, he's like, I don't get it. He said, what differentiates in that case? Those cross beams could be schach also. They're not puzzle schach. They could also be cross. They could also be schach. So how do you differentiate between the why are you calling that the maimed as opposed to the schach? So Chazon Ish, he was very machmir in this opinion, and he held that you had to do like the whole thing. You had to make like wooden screw. He also held that if your walls, your walls were wood, but they're held up by screws. So then, what's holding up your sukkah, which is really holding up your schach, are the metal screws. Also no good. So I don't know how they made sukkahs. I know my Rabbi Berkowitz, he said the first time he built a sukkah, he was like connected to Chazon Ish, and he like the whole thing was like metal, like it was crazy. So then he said the second time he built a sukkah, he said the second time he made a sukkah, he wanted, he did it, mamish, he did it totally like the Chazon Ish. He's very handy, Rabbi Berkowitz, and he built his sukkah he made it like Lego. He cut out the pieces for his doors, and they were able to fit into each other. That's how he made his sukkah all out of wood. He had no metal in it. He said, I think at one point he said it warped eventually because it was all wood, but that was a different issue. Anyway, that's today's.
It works.
All right.
That's how we did the wall.